So let's start by mocking up a couple of classes for the page object and the form object and see what they might look like. So go back to the resource pack directory and open up the second step, which is called adding placeholder classes. And copy all of the code and paste it over the code that's currently in the index.php file that we've been working with and save it. If you scroll up to the very top, you'll see two classes, form and page. And this gives you an example of the structure of a class. We use the class keyword and then the name of the class, just like we would name a function. And then within the class, we have properties, which are variables that belong within the class. So the settings variable that you see here is actually a property of the form class. And then we have methods, which are just functions that exist within the class. So we have the class, we have the properties, and we have the methods. But really the only structures you haven't seen here before are class, the public keyword, and the this variable you see down below. We'll talk more about what public means down the road a little bit, but this is the same as just initializing a variable for this class. Now you can see the functions down here look really similar to what we had before in our procedural functions. So we have build, validate, and submit. Notice that we don't have to call it build form because we're inside of the form class. We don't have to call it validate form or submit form. So the naming actually becomes a little more readable. Now build form and submit form aren't really complicated to read, but as you start to build more complicated applications, you start adding more and more to the name of the functions in order to delineate them from other types of functions that might have similar uses. And that's when things start getting pretty ugly. You end up with function names that are 30 characters long or 50 characters long. But within a class, you can call a function anything you want, even if it's a function name that already exists in PHP. So it allows us to call things exactly what they are, and that can really help with readability. So this is one of the first benefits that we're running into in structuring a class, is that we can call our functions anything that we want. With the page class, we're establishing our settings property, and then we have our build and theme functions. Again, not build page and theme page, just build and theme. Now one other element that looks a little different here is this construct function. It starts with 2 underscores and then construct, and then it's passed a variable here. So we'll see how this is used in a moment, but this is called a constructor. When we create an instance of a form object, what happens is that this constructor function gets called, and it gets passed any variables that got passed to the instantiation of the object. Now these might sound like new words, but you'll get used to them really fast. So just like you can pass parameters to a function, you can pass them to a class as well. But instead of specifying what those parameters are here up where we define the class, we instead specify them in this construct function. If the class doesn't take any parameters at all, then you don't actually need this. But we're going to choose to structure our classes in a way so that it does take parameters. So this constructor is going to be necessary for that. We'll be talking a bit more about this variable here as we go through these examples, but it references the particular instance of the class that's currently being worked on. So here what we're doing is setting a property. We actually initialize the property up here, and we reference it by using this variable along with a dash and a right bracket, and then the name of the variable or property. So basically what we're saying with this constructor function is that when we create an instance of this form class, we're going to pass it some settings, and then we're going to set that parameter as a property within the class, which we can then reference anywhere else in our class. Again, if that series of ideas doesn't quite make sense just yet, don't worry, because as the examples evolve, your understanding of this will develop. So again, a quick review of the new concepts that we have here. We have a class, which is just defined with this class keyword, and you can see that it has the name of the class, an open bracket, and then an ending bracket. So there doesn't need to be actually anything within this class for the syntax to be valid. But we added a property here, which is the same as a variable that exists within a class, and we added several methods, including a constructor method.